Hello again. Thank you for joining me for another video. So today I was going to talk about how you can tell if you're being called by God to do something. And this one is a really tricky topic because it actually delves into some territory that people have such strong opinions about. It really isn't a matter of whether or not you're being called by God, but how, or spirit, if you will, but how you will navigate the world at large, which may really want to prevent you from following that calling. So, we live in a world that is very much set up so that there's a very rigid and strict path to success established, which essentially is the path that's been established to maintain some level of social normalcy, some level of social stability. It really has nothing to do with soul growth or, individual recognition of the reality that exists beyond getting born, learning enough stuff to get a job, and reproducing and doing all of that until you die. It is the nature of our social structures and social institutions are really largely geared around basic physical shit, and that's it. So when it comes to trying to figure out what is this outside of that calling, what is going on? So I can tell you from personal experience some of the the problems that I ran into trying to deal with my spiritual calling. My spiritual calling came very, very early in my life. It was something I was always interested in. I was always weird about it. I was always getting reactions from people that were feeding back to me that it wasn't normal what I was saying. It wasn't acceptable. They were questioning it. It wasn't like other forms of topic which received kind of just like a normal, everyday, kind of like happy-go-lucky vibe and interaction. This would always get some kind of, a little bit of that kind of facial, like, questioning. It didn't leave you feeling really supported. It wasn't like, hey, yes, this is great. Wow, what have you discovered? And that feeling has never really gone away. So it's really difficult to talk about spiritual matters to people, especially when what you want to use to convey the information are personal experiences from your life, especially when it comes to spiritual matters, because everything is so abstract. People want to come up with those things on their own. It's so coded in individuated perception that it's really hard to communicate about these issues. It is as if your spirit alone grows and is getting feedback. And so the best you can do is tell people, well, you can grow your spirit and receive feedback from it in a way that you cannot describe in any capacity that someone can understand until they do it for themselves. It's really that you have to do to get it. You have to have some sort of divine interaction with you, some supernatural force acting on your life before you're like, oh, well, that is out of the ordinary. That is something different than what I was dealing with before. But trying to explain that to other people, forget it. So in my life, I had several instances where I felt like I was being called and where spirit was really shaking up my life. And then I had to stop and look at that. So two things happened over the course of it. The people around me said that I was crazy, and they meant it. They really were concerned for my mental health. And the only way to prove to people that you're not actually crazy is to hold on to the world that they're holding on to as real at the same time that you're holding on to the world that you see coming into your reality. If you can hold their reality as real also and only give that back to them, they won't think you're crazy. So it's really the trick. As soon as someone, it's like being able to follow the social acceptable behavior of allowing a person to perceive reality as they deem fit and not intruding. Now obviously your reality is different and you are expanding into a new level of awareness, but they're not ready to do that. And so you're just going to have to take it for granted that because of the rules that are set in place in this realm, there's not a lot you can really do about that. You have to hold their reality as real at the same time that you're exploring the newness of your own. And as long as you can do that, they can't say that you're not sane. That's really pretty much the trick of things. And getting past that, the next, besides getting past the stage of I'm not crazy, the next stage that you have to get past is I'm not the devil. So it kind of goes in, these are the few things that come up. You're crazy, you're the devil, you're lazy, you're just trying to get out of something. Those are the things that come up when you try to follow a spiritual calling. And as long as you can meet each one of these instances and get past them, you can actually start exploring your spiritual calling and learn to integrate some of the things that it offers in a way that is actually beneficial to people, or if not, most certainly will be beneficial to yourself. So if you pass the test of I'm not crazy, which I had a very hard time passing that test because I had so many proofs. I had so many things that were happening in my life that were outside of the norm, and as far as I could tell, there's no way that many things would happen by chance. Things like I've talked about a little bit before, the ones that I'm willing to talk about anyways, falling off a cliff, rollover accident. I actually counted to someone one time, I think I have like 15 near-death experiences, or like should have been harmful, didn't harm me at all. It's really weird that happens so many times. And how many times I've like predicted things that were going to happen, and just the general spiritual gifts that come along with certain levels of spiritual practice and awareness. You will get tuned into people's etheric fields, and you can actually help them quite a bit if they're willing to let you explain what you're seeing. And of course, not everybody's willing to see that. So that brings us to the second point. Once you get past the being called crazy phase, you have to get past the you're the devil phase. And this one is painful for people who are experiencing these things because they are spiritually inclined. Generally, people who are spiritually inclined have a pretty compassionate heart in general. They're more open, they're more sensitive to what other people are going through. They may not be able to tolerate the amount of suffering that a lot of people can tune out in the world, and they want solutions. And so they actually start an evolutionary growth into attempting through the evolutionary cycle to solve the problem of human suffering. And those are the people that get accused of being demonic, possessed, and tried to be put back in a box pretty quickly, where there's only one way to achieve salvation. You proclaim Jesus, you talk about Jesus, it's only Jesus. You don't do anything. Your whole job is just to love Jesus, because Jesus has literally already done everything, and that's why the world is so awesome right now. The problem is not enough people know that. So if you're not willing to accept that, and you want to be an active participant, because even if you do believe in Jesus, that's what you thought it meant first among many, and that you're supposed to be doing something rather than just proclaiming praises, it's going to be really painful to hear that you're the devil, because you are trying to be a willful participant in the kingdom established here on earth, and in particular to end people's suffering. So there's so many bad things that happen on earth, and we know this throughout history of humanity. It's just unbelievable, all of the ways that we've concocted to harm each other. So it is always struck me as unbelievable that people will accuse, like simple things like wanting to heal people through Reiki. I have friends who have studied Reiki that I went in my Reiki class with, who were accused of witchcraft, literally laying on hands of people and trying to heal them, accused of witchcraft. And Kundalini awakening, which allows for your energy to mesh with your soul and your spirit, which is divine in nature, it all starts coming online as one being. That's been referred to as possession. If you're able to see ghosts and understand some of the strange ways that energy patterns get stuck on Earth, there's a weird little magnetic pull that will keep certain energies stuck on Earth. If you're aware of them, you can be accused also of engaging with dark forces. People who channel. Now, here's where it gets a little, you need some discernment. Because we live in an age of technology and much of the technology is sent through the airwaves, it is actually quite possible that you are not channeling a being, but a person who, or information that is being sent electronically. And just because our brains are so stinking sensitive and able to translate these waves into language, you have to be more careful on this front. So I tend to err on the side of what is the message before I care. And 9 times out of 10, the message is not anything so out of the ordinary that any person, channeling or not, could come up with and say, it's benign, it doesn't matter. It's when people start trying to direct others with channeled messages that are trying to get them to vote for certain people, get them to, avoid certain places, people, ideas, that it takes on a more strange thing that you got to be wary of. But people are capable of discernment in themselves for that too. So I wouldn't necessarily say that is like, oh, you're just letting demons talk through you, because 9 times out of 10, they're not even saying anything that matters anyways. This just isn't the way that those forces cause damage. The way that the forces that people fear so much cause damage is when we sit there and walk past people and blame people for having nothing, when we have decided to allow everything to be controlled. So if everything in nature is going to be controlled by human beings, then it is never going to be an individual's fault that they don't have any part of it, because it's controlled. It is not up to them and God and nature. That's where shit gets bad. And that's what we ought to be concerned about, instead of all this other stuff. So let's go back to what I was talking about. So you get past the crazy talk, you get past the point of being, accused of being somehow evil or demonic in nature. The next thing that you're going to have to, the hurdle you're going to have to jump through is, what is it? What is being asked of me? So if what is being asked of you and what you feel called to do is largely outside of the social spectrum, in terms of literally getting your needs met, how are you going to get your needs met at the same time that you're answering your spiritual calling? Because if you tell people, listen, I don't need to work because God has called me to do this thing, nobody's going to be okay with that, and they're going to give you a hard time, even if that is exactly what God's asking you to do. So what you need to know is, am I willing to go sit on a corner with a sign and make my money that way, so that while I'm sitting there and putting faith in God to provide my needs for me, I don't have to be distracted by a 9-to-5 job and that vibration of being in the midst of kind of normal society and the rigid way that can impact your mind at times. So can you take care of your own business, right? Because if you can't, society is going to have a hard time with you, and no one's going to tell you, oh, God called you. Okay, then I'm going to feed you on Monday and Tuesday, and we're going to set up some stuff here so that Wednesday and Thursday, John down the road's going to feed you. And Friday and Saturday, Nana over on the other block over there is going to feed. That it just isn't the world we're living in right now. So if you're called by God, you better negotiate so that you're actually taken care of in some capacity. And until you have all of your needs met, you don't have to, it can literally be, are you willing to sit on the corner? Like, God doesn't play. Either you're going to do it or you're not. So don't sign up for something because you want to go and be that special guru on a pedestal, because that is very rare. They're rare people that get put on a pedestal in that way. Usually what it is service work that nobody ever knows about. That's what it really is to be called by God, to be honest with you. And so once you get past all of those hurdles, now you got to get past your own self, because you have wants. You have things that you wanted to do. You have a whole ginormous closet full of ego, of unmet needs, unmet memories, unmet desires, things that you want to resolve, things that you want to go after. And you have to really stop and decide, after you've made it through all of that, do I have it in me to actually turn away from all those things that I've been working for, or that I see as potential and possibility? There's certain aspects of yourself that no one else is ever going to understand. It's such a truly personal experience when you're called to do bigger, better, less traditional things than the next guy or gal. So I hope some of that gave you some food for thought and to think about it, and how you will navigate if you feel like you're being called. Don't let them tell you you're crazy. Don't let them tell you you're the devil. Don't get yourself painted into a corner where you have no financial resources whatsoever, and so society comes after you, because they do have the ability to lock you up if they don't like you like that. And then you have to meet your own self and what barriers are in you. And then addressing all of those issues, you can look and see that it's not so much being called, it's walking into it with a little bit of bravery and intuition to see how life will unfold for you. Okay, until next time, take care.